E eu preciso, inclusive, saber se está saindo
O áudio está saindo.
O áudio, tá? Enquanto eu falo aqui. There it is. We are close to begin. Let's see if the audio is okay. This wire is not this.
Ei, estamos ouvindo? Estamos ouvindo. Pode falar que vai começar.
Eu não vou usar esse microfone, vou usar só esse e aquele outro ali.
Vai começar em
Yeah. Okay. So we are almost starting here. I would like to know how my voice is sounding. So we'll start in like 2 or 3 minutes, okay? For now, just sound adjustments. This is the microphone 1. Vinicius, please let me know how microphone 1 is sounding. And next, I will test microphone 2. Let's see how microphone 2 is sounding. I'm going to add some microphones. Hey, add some effects. How is that now? How is that? Effects. Yeah, it was like this. Hello there. Hey.
Cara, comprei a segunda placa de vídeo,
sei lá. Increase a lot. Yeah, this is Robert voices. Right, guys, we're almost there. A bit more of adjustments. And we should connect. Hello there. No double. I don't need double. 9, okay. Just a bit of chorus. Because this sounds cool. Okay. Saiu tudo aí? Tamo legal para começar a hora que vocês quiserem aí, galera.
Tem que abrir o
mais uma meia aí, cara.
Tá, daí tem que abrir o sharing.
Como é que faz aqui, Pedro?
Não tem ninguém aqui, cara. Só tem eu aqui,
Mas tudo bem, vai ficar registrado. Tu precisa abrir a paradinha e dar o share, tá? Abre o teu PowerPoint lá, então.
Cadê o meu PowerPoint? No pendrive?
Tá no pendrive aí, cara. Tá conectado no pendrive.
Abre o pendrive.
Cadê?
Abre o Windows Explorer.
É que os caras querem entender de Sitecore, não sabe o Windows Explorer.
Foda, velho.
Instalar o Windows Explorer.
Aqui, ó.
Cara, usando recursos da empresa para fazer apresentação.
Peraí, não tá extended.
E não usa o PowerPoint aí, tem uma expressão muito interessante.
É isso? É isso.
Tá, peraí. A gente vai dar o share daquela tela lá?
Isso.
Nessa aqui.
Isso, não, daquela.
Então vamos voltar aqui e dar um... Peraí, não precisa sair não, cara. Aí eu tenho share aqui, ó, share. Aí, screen 1 ou screen 2? É screen 2, certo?
Uhum.
Então tem que dar o share agora. It's present, you are screen sharing. O que é present to everyone?
Acho que deve ser, né? Presente agora.
Vê se aparece o screen sharing dele, por favor.
Hold on. Tá conseguindo aí?
Dá um hide aqui. Não, ele sempre
Tá
tem
aparecendo, tá aparecendo.
uns 10 segundos.
Tá aparecendo.
Então, cara, aí tu volta aqui, ignora aquele de trás, tá?
E manda
Aqui ele fica só para sharing agora. E esse aqui eu tenho o microfone. Tá.
Beleza.
Take it. Eu ia comprar, eu tentei achar um negocinho de mesa para ficar segurando, mas não achei, cara. As lojas de cinema estão mal.
Hoje a gente faz uma vaquinha e todo mundo paga.
Tá, antes de qualquer coisa, antes de começar, eu vou só abrir rapidão, tá? Falar rapidinho.
Tá, fazer o quê?
Vai falar as verdades aqui.
So that's it, guys. We'll take advantage of this opportunity to tout some real shit. But I'm new. Brincadeira, não é abrindo. All right, guys. I guess we're good to get started. So this is still our last Sitecore user group in 2017. I'm proud to announce here today José Neto and Leonardo, who will talk about, José Neto will talk about Sitecore deployments and the things you should know to minimize risks, while Leonardo will talk about his model he built for image manipulation. Good stuff, guys. We're good to get started. José, it's all on you.
Hello. Hello, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Rodrigo, and thank you, the founders of this group. I think it's been amazing what you guys done during this year, and I'm very glad to contribute to the Sitecore community here. Thank you, Vinicius. Thank you, Diego. And well, today, and thank you, I already said, thank you, Rodrigo. You are the first. Well, today I will start talking about some Sitecore deployments. But first, I would like to say some words, a few words about me. I'm a Sitecore developer at Backtick, and I've been working with Sitecore in the last 3 years. Prior that, I was working with SharePoint 2010 and 2013. And my name is José Neto, as you already know, and I really enjoyed working with Sitecore. Well, this presentation is basically divided in 3 main subjects. First would be the scenarios, like standalone, scaled. The second topic would be the deployment procedure. So I will talk a little bit about technical stuff for you guys. And the third topic would be about risks. So it's a useful presentation, not just for developers, but also for managers or infrastructure as well. Well, first I would like to talk to you about something that's very important in your society. It is the beer. As everyone knows here, the process is very huge. It starts with the barley malt, one of the main ingredients of the beer, and then we have this big process until the beer is ready and packed. Well, this whole process requires a lot of caution. And now that we have the beer packed, we start to believe that nothing can go wrong. And it's just a matter of delivering the beer to the bar, and everything's gonna go smoothly. But sometimes things go wrong, and just a simple curve can fail your delivery. So I would like to talk a little bit about the importance of the delivery. So the main objectives are the client satisfaction and the quality. So regarding the product that you have, you must perform a good delivery. The client must be satisfied with your product, and it needs to show some quality so he can use it again. In your case, contract your services once again. Well, let's talk about Sitecore deployments. This would be the first step. It is important to keep a text file with all the information that you need to use during the deployment. This text should contain the Sitecore items and there should be items that will be published to the database. That includes templates, renderings. It is also important you have all the information regarding the servers. So this would be helpful. So the tip would be write down the steps. Well, let's take an example here. So you need to update your rendering on the home page. So someone made a change, and you need to deploy that. So you can write down those steps, like connect to Sitecore environment, and then this would be a simple deployment, install the package, and you have this name here. And the process is done, right? Well, really, is it done? It's just that process. As you know, some things can show up during this process, and this is one important scenario that you may face. You need to install in this case. You need to install in this case a new Sitecore item on the home page, and what you should do, right? Should you overwrite? Should you merge? Should you skip? You forgot to write about this on your text file. So there are a few possible outcomes from that. Well, the left one, you would select overwrite, and the second one you'd click to merge. So you forgot about that. You don't have this note on your text file, and you face this simple box here, and maybe you are in production, and now you have a decision to take. Well, if you choose the left option, you probably deleted all the files from the home page because you choose the overwrite. So this is something that happens. And the second one, it's the right one, as a new version of the Sitecore was created. So it's fine. So we can take some a lesson here. You can test your deployment, or maybe your local machine. You can install the package on your local machine, or in a QA environment, whatever the place that you have. Try to test that and add a detailed description. This is very important. Even for a simple deployment, things can go wrong, right? So have a detailed description of your procedure. Well, the next tip would be regarding the organization. It is important to keep things organized. So when you create a manual deployment, you can create like 2 folders, and with the name that you can see here, like backup and deployment packages. You can create a folder with the deployment package that you're going to install on the server. You can create a backup, so you can copy the servers, banner files, or all the website folder, and keep that in that way. Another option would be to name a zip file with a meaningful description, with the Jira ticket that you are deploying. So try to keep that in a way that your team and you can understand and have a story about that, so you can understand that, right? Well, here, let's talk about the difference between a selective deployment and a full deployment. This is a scenario that you may face. Sometimes you need just to deploy a simple CSS file, and it's like 10K, and you probably will perform this selective deployment. The full deployment would be a deployment that you will deploy a lot of files, a lot of CSS, a lot of binary files. So this it is a scenario that you can try to take a decision which would be the best one for your case. If it is a development of about, I don't know, 1 month or 3 months, probably you would choose the full deployment. But if it's just a quick fix, maybe this selected deployment can be the best option for you. Another important thing, it's the rollback plan. There are many ways of performing the rollback plan. You can back up the virtual machine itself. Maybe if you're going to change something on IES or on the website, the VM can be a backup. You can perform a backup of the files from the website folder, the binary files, the layout files. You should also back up the database, or this is like related to Sitecore items. You can create this database backup to save the Sitecore items in case of an issue. Another way of performing that backup would be creating an empty package. What this means, if you imagine if you have to install like 10 new renders, so you can create an empty package, which would be you connect to that server, you create a package of those files prior to deployment. So if you need to roll back that quickly, you can just install this empty package. This would be a quicker solution in that case. Well, the database backup, as we said, it's something very important. If it is a big deployment, you need to create a backup of the core database, the master database, the web. Sometimes you may have the preview database as well, and sometimes you can have some additional databases. Maybe it's some integration. Anyway, you should have a backup of all those databases. And it's also very important to have automated backups. So at night, your server should be configured to perform that. So get in touch with your IT team or to the client to make sure that you have that. Another way to keep things organized is to change the version from the ASM file. So you can change the file version incrementally, and that will help you to track the changes during the year. So you can have that information, and you know if that was the last deployment or if it's not. So if you are the developer, you can change that and commit this to the source control. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the deployment scenarios, specifically the standalone instance. This is a highly risked one. When you have just one server, it's a standalone server, the CM and CD are the same server, and you will need to perform that deployment, right? This will probably do an IES reset. This will take your website down for a while. Your website may take maybe some seconds or a couple of minutes to be online again. And it is highly risked. Why? Well, because if something goes wrong on the binary files, you need to quick revert to that. But if something goes wrong when you deployed some Sitecore items, in that case, you need to roll back the database or the items with the anti-patch or the database rollback. And this may take a while. And if it takes too much, this can affect your brand. It's not going to be a good one. So this is the very risky one. Well, second one would be the deployment on the CM server. Well, CM server, it's not that risky because it's not it's live, but the internet is not seeing that website. So you just must remember some quick tips, like send an email to the content authors so they don't touch your environment during the deployment. This can affect. I also made a model that will help you to do that, so you can lock your users, and you'll know that no one will be there touching the environment during your deployment. And well, after you deploy your code into the CM server, you can ask the QA team to double check. You should also do some smoke tests. And after you get the validation for your QA, the client can double check the changes and get the approval to move on to the CD server. Well, now I'm going to talk a little bit about the CD server. Well, the CD server, as I already told you, it is highly risk. You will copy the files over, you will publish Sitecore items to the web database, and you have just one CD. You'll be on the line, right? So be careful. Well, the next one would be a multi-server scenario. This would be if you have two or more delivery instances. So this is an excellent scenario to avoid downtime of the website. Well, the first column here, it shows the current scenario. It would be both CD1 and CD2 online. So how to perform that deployment on this scenario? Well, in the step 2, you put the CD2 under maintenance, which will be the removal of the server from the load balance. The step 3, you will restore the latest web database backup as a web temporary. Then you change the connection strings and point the CD2 to the web temporary. Step 4, you will test internally the CD2 to see if it is working, and you put the CD2 back in the load balance. This step 5, you need to remove the CD1 from the load balance, deploy the files on CD1, and publish the items to web database. You also need to test the CD1 internally, and if it's cool, you can continue the deployment. The step 6, you put the CD1 back on the load balance, and the deployment is done for the CD1. And then you need to remove, and the step 7, you remove the CD2 from the load balance again, point the CD2 to web database again, and copy files over CD2 file system. And then you're gonna put the CD2 on the load balance again. Well, I would like to discuss you about one thing that we did here. It's the creation of the web temporary database. Why should we create a web temporary database? This is a way to protect your Sitecore items, because you may deploy the binary files, but you also must protect your database, because even just one Sitecore item that a new field was added or removed or changed, it can break your website. So in that case, I made the website run on a temporary database, which would be the hot environment, the live one, and meanwhile I was deploying to the web database. And just after I have all the approvals and I know that everything is fine, I pointed back to the web database, and the web temporary can be discarded. So this is an excellent way to avoid downtimes. Well, this is almost the blue and green approach. So the blue and green approach would be if you have exactly the same environments. But you must remember that this must include the Mongo databases and the analytics database. In that case that I showed you, I had just the CDs, right? And I protected my web database as well. But for a blue and green approach to be like 100%, you also need to perform that trick with the database, but including Mongo or any analytics database that you may have. So will also help you to have a downtime during your deployment. Well, another way to perform deployments would be using the Sitecore Constellation Wizard. This is a tool that you have on Sitecore, and you can install packages. And this is some way connected to the TDS project. So you need to change some things on TDS, and TDS will generate a package for you, and you can use that for install. So here you can configure your TDS to deploy things, the items that you need. You can specify if it must be overwrite or not, and you can use the TDS for that, the deployment property manager. Well, another thing that is important during this generation of the package would be the publishing profiles. The publishing profiles can be created for each environment or each developer. Usually it's for each environment. So in this case, I have DevCM, DevCD for CI environment, for QA environment, and you have the production CM and the production CD, and I also have some profiles for the users. So the publishing profile with the use combined with the deployment manager, it can generate a different set of files on this package. Well, what should I add to the TDS? This is a question that we always have. So, well, we should have the templates. If you have something that changed on the system, you should have the layouts. You should have the main configurations, and maybe you should have some basic content. At least the site needs to open and you visualize things. If you put all the content, if the website is big and you put 100 of items there, your sync will be very slow. The generation of the package will be even slower, and things can get complicated. But this is a very important decision that you as a developer should take. Well, another thing that is important is the XML transformations. So you have an XML file, and for some reason, because the difference of environments, you need to change that. So the XML transformations combined with the package and with the publish profiles, they are a very powerful tool. So it will generate the correct set of files for you. Here we can see how to create this package. So we will go in the TDS, fill those fields. Mark that checkbox, generate package during build, and then after you perform a build on Visual Studio, you have a file, this file. This would be the updated package that you can use to install on Sitecore. Well, but we have a new trend that's been a while in the market, and it's going to have some widely adoption, which is the unicorn. So what unicorn does? Well, unicorn is the default serialization that Habitat uses. So that is pushing the adoption quickly. The items are written on the disk You don't have an unicorn project like you have in TDS. And every time you change something on Sitecore, this file would be serialized to your disk. So it's very quickly, it works pretty good. And this image, you can see the demonstration of the files generated by the unicorn. Well, there are good things on Unicorn. You can download this model from the marketplace. It is very easy to sync. It can automate your serialization, and it's pretty fast. It's a little bit harder to configure than the TDS, but I recommend you to take a look on that. Yeah, in this image, we have the Unicorn control panel. Well, another thing it's very spread. It's the automated deployments using continuous integration. So in this scenario, in this tool, you can deploy for your development environment, for the quality assurance environment, for the production environment. You can break from CM and CD if you want to. Well, this tool, this is the TeamCity, has a lot of configurations, and this will help you to automate your deployment. And using that with the TDS, it's very helpful. We have other tools on the market as well. We have the Octopus Deploy, we have the TeamCity, and we have the Jenkins. All those tools are for the same purpose. It is all to automate your deployments. Well, now we're going to talk a little bit about risks. It's a different part of the presentation. As I said, we would split this presentation in separated things. And the focus here would be about risks. Well, the risk is a defined variable that can take a value that endangers or eliminate the success for a project. So it's something that can, eliminate your success, and you have a lot of problem because of that. Let's talk a little bit about risks. Risks during the deployment. Well, how to choose the perfect date and time for your deployment. That will vary from the scenario that you have. You may choose to deploy that on non-business hours, or at the morning, or the afternoon. If you're going to deploy that at night on non-business hours, that can be good. If you have a standalone environment, this will help you a little bit because you're not gonna cut the traffic of your website during the business hours. Well, and another thing would be the Friday deployments. Well, should you deploy on Friday? Yes or no? So should you deploy on Friday? Well, this is a question that it's on our lives. And well, I would recommend you to avoid the deployment on Friday. Why? Well, as you can see, Homer Simpson there, he's pretty happy. You know, thanks God it's Friday. Yeah, it's Friday. Everyone want to leave the office. And if you need some help to perform a rollback, maybe no one will be in the office anymore. And this would be applies to the afternoon deployment as well. You need to think how long will it take to roll back. So if it is a quick deployment, you can maybe do it at the afternoon. But maybe you're going to perform a deployment that will take, I don't know, 4 hours, 3 hours. And how long will it take you to roll back that? So in case of failure of the deployment, like 3 hours of the deployment, and then 2 for the rollback, it took 5 hours, right? So you need to put that as a variable to your deployments. And the same applies to the Friday deployments. If your deployments goes until the night and no one will be there to roll back, maybe it's a third-party team that will roll back the database, well, maybe they will be in the Friday spirit and no one will be there for you. So this is a risk that you should consider. Well, another risk would be the number of functionalities. So a small number of functionalities or things that are not that complex can minimize the deployment risk. If it is a big set of the functionalities, like 1 month of deployment, this can be risky due to the time of the deployment. You need to consider that after deployment, your team will double check the features, and you need the approval for your team, for the client, to let you know that the deployment is done. And if it's not, you need to perform the rollback. So it is a risk as well that you must take. Here it is a risk classification by infrastructure type. So a standalone server, it is high risk because you have just one server, things can go wrong, and your website can be offline for a while. If you have a CM and CD nodes, this will mitigate the risks a little bit because you will have the opportunity to see that on your CM first before you move on to CD. So I classified that as a middle risk. And if you have a CM and CD but with more servers or more nodes, which would be the case of 2 CD nodes, this would be like a low risk because you can do a code deployment, test that, double check, and then change the servers and deploy the other node. So this can take to a 0 downtime, so it would be a low risk deployment. Well, now we have automated tools. Maybe the clients don't have these automated tools. You need to perform a manual deployment. So for a manual deployment, I classified that as a middle risk because you may forget to write down something. And for automated would be a low risk deployment. Well, for the deployments, I would consider that a high risk one. If a business hours, I will put a high risk if you are on the standalone server. If you have a lot of servers, a lot of nodes, it may not be. So that will vary due to our infra. And well, in this, it is non-business hours, it's a low risk. If you are in it's like a standalone server, but you know that you can deploy that at night and you will not affect the users. Well, so another classification would be for number of functionalities. So maybe like 1 to 3. 1 would be like low risk, 3 to 5, like middle risk, more than 5 functionalities or more than 5 Jira tickets would be a high risk, or something that you need to consider the time for the deployment and the time to test those features on production, so you know that the deployment was done correctly and the features are there and everything is cool. Well, and with all this information, you can create a risk assessment matrix so you can try to understand the risk of your deployment, the impact, and how to mitigate that. So with that in mind, let's do a simple exercise here. The client has a standalone Sitecore server. It is a manual deployment. It is scheduled to begin at 5 a.m. the backup database and the files are ready. It's a small functionality. So this is a scenario that you received, and you try to classify that to measure how long it's going to take, when you're going to perform the deployment, how will be your countermeasures. So let's analyze by the infra first. Well, the client has a standalone Sitecore server. So, well, this severity is a high risk. This is risky. The impact of that, you can let your client know that it can be temporary, offline, and it can affect your brand. The mitigation of that, you can talk to your client and tell him to try to invest in a better infra. So this would be the way to mitigate that risk. The second risk that you're gonna check would be the how this deployment would be performed. Is it an automated deployment? Is it a manual deployment? In this case, it is a manual deployment. We don't have automated tools in that scenario. So the impact of that, if the team fails to deploy, some small errors can be seen on the website. Something is break, and can be just detected later on. So the way to mitigate that would be to perform a smoke test after that to see if nothing is broken. Number 3 would be business or non-business hours. So this is a standalone server, and it's 5 a.m. So it is no business hours. Probably the client asks you to perform early in the morning, so you don't affect their users. So this is good. It would be a low risk. Well, if your site has it is a e-commerce or is purchasing something, the ISUs that may take out those users from your website for a while. So this will do some impact. And if it is a non-business hours, you're not going to have much users connected to the web or your website, so it makes things easier. The mitigation, we are already doing that. We will perform that in the morning. Number 4, the risk would be about the functionalities. So in this scenario, we have like a small functionality. So this, well, the impact of that would be a component, a change on a component. So it can break just a component, but will not disrupt the whole website. And how to mitigate that? You can test the functionality after the deployment. Well, another important thing that you may do, it is the deployment agreement. Well, the client must be aware of the responsibilities for everyone. So you can create an email or a doc and send to the client. So you will agree with the client that the date of this deployment, in this case, January 1st, 5 a.m. Rollback responsibility. Who is going to perform the rollback, and how long it's going to take? Maybe it's you, maybe it's your IT team, maybe it's a third party, maybe it's the client. So this responsibility must be on this document. So if anything goes wrong, everyone knows what to do, and everyone agreed, right? So time to roll back. This is a crucial information. If something goes wrong, the client will be desperate. It will need to know how long it's going to take to roll back. So this is something that you will analyze and agree with the client, or set up the expectation of how much it's going to take to roll back the website. So maybe 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours. These will depend from the client and the client's infrastructure team. And the client also need to know what are you deploying. it is a fix. It is a work order, so you can specify in this document what this is about. So in that scenario, it is a work order 25. So he will be aware of what is this work order. It's a new development, so everyone will know and we will agree what you will be deploying. Well, thank you very much. I hope you had learned something about the deployments. If you are not a developer, I hope you have understand a little bit about the risks, and we'll try to minimize those risks during your next deployment. And thank you very much. You can see my email and my website, Sitecore Latin America. You can visit my website. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, guys, cool. Thank you, Jose. I guess we open for questions. Anyone have any questions? I do have some things noted here, and I would like to just come up with this as a note. You have mentioned, Jose, about anti-packages. Can you just talk a little bit more about that, because it was really quick, how that works and how can you uninstall it?
All right. Well, you will install a rendering, right? It's a Sitecore item, just one Sitecore item. This would be like a small deployment. If something goes wrong during this deployment, maybe you need to roll back the entire database. So if you want to try to avoid that, you can create this empty package. What would be this empty package? Would be the item that you have currently on the production. So you will, if you have a problem, you will reinstall not the package that you have, which is the change itself. You will install the original package. So you will be responsible for generating this package prior to the deployment, because after the deployment, you can't roll back that, right? So you need to perform the database backup. So this is something that can facilitate your restore. If you need to perform this quick rollback.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with the anti-packages that Sitecore Rocks has?
Well, no, because this, well, if you have, Sitecore Rocks has an anti-package that you can generate it there, but you don't have the certainty that you have in your environment is what you have on the production environment. So that is the difference. If you get from production, you know that you have 100% sure that that is the latest version of that item. If you generate from Sitecore Rocks, you are not guaranteeing that you have the latest version. So that would be an issue.
I see. Yeah, thank you. What else? Anyone has any other question? Okay. Okay. I'm glad that you mentioned the green blue deploy, which is something that has been announced. This being promoted this week on Twitter. What would be the point on making backups of the analytics data?
Well, if you are performing a deployment in the green and blue environment, well, having the copy of the entire environment first will help you to make sure that nothing will break. And about your question would be specifically what's the point of performing this backup? Well, nowadays all the Sitecore is getting strange on this this area would be the data analysis from the users and this kind of reports. And a lot of customers need that data updated and not corrupted, or don't need to suffer interference during your deployment. Because maybe if you perform like a deployment, you're going to run a test with some automated tools, this may affect that. So it is good you have this information saved somewhere. And well, to conclude your question, the Boolean Green or the two CD here's two CD scenarios that I told here, both would help you to avoid the downtime, which would be an excellent thing for your client.
Almost done. What else? I guess. When you talking about TDS automation, you haven't mentioned that, but I'd like to say that there is a package. There is a package from TDS that you can install in a Sitecore installation that will automatically install that .update packages for you, so you don't have to go to the installation wizard. That can be used in continuous integration, so you can automate that. Right, you forgot to give us the link for your module. You mentioned your module. We'll add this link to the YouTube video next, okay, in the future. And you raised a very good point about what to add on TDS. This is a kind of something we talked about in the last user group. I was in the DevOps session in Las Vegas, and that was a point as well. They kind of say you should not add data to TDS. Sometimes it's hard to get there. And this ended up going to a discussion with Jason Sensor today that I had. Thank you, Jason, for all the inspiration. So you should kind of sometimes use some kind of automation or scripts to make sure that you don't need TDS items, data items on TDS. Well, I guess that's all I have. Anything else?
On that note, about what to add and what not to add on TDS, really comes down to how you're structuring your process on your development, right? Because I guess most of the agencies out there are building websites and expecting that the content author will be doing the content author parts, which is essentially the content of your website, right? But there are agencies who actually build the content as well as part of the delivery. If that's part of the delivery, then during the development process, part of the content should be in TDS, up to the point where you deliver to your client, right? But of course, when you go to production, that goes off. But during the development cycle, that doesn't make sense. So again, this all comes down to what your development process really is, what your client is expecting, and how you're going to get there, right? So these two do facilitate and help you achieve the best out of it. One of the things that I thought was really interesting you mentioning here, and I wanted to get a little bit of your thoughts as well, is around automating deployments using tools like GBS or Uniform, right? I think this is kind of my personal opinion. One of the great benefits that they help us achieve, not only source controlling your items and whatever needs to go, deploy, but at the same time, when you're in production and you need to automate your deployment, you can get there, right? So you mentioned on one of your slides, one of the topics around versus manual versus package deployment and benefits, pros and cons on one of those. One of the things that I think is really important, and this is my personal opinion, right, is that if you have an automated setup, follow the automated process, because if you start adding manual things to your production environment, you will never know. Because the next time you automate your deployment, you're going to override whatever manual changes you did, like a manual config, a manual CSS, or whatever, right? So even though looking from a first perspective, it might be easier to just deploy a single bin or a single CSS, you're kind of bypassing the process that you establish yourself by automating it, right? Exactly to avoid these kind of situations. And I've seen myself using the problem that it caused, like manual changes on prod that wasn't automated, with everything that comes along with it. So just want to get a little bit of your thoughts on what you think about that, and how to avoid this kind of thing. By the way, great presentation. Love it.
Hello. Well, this was a great question, and well, if you already paid for automated deployment, so you should try to stick to this approach. So use that. It's expensive. It makes life easier. It's makes things easier in a lot of ways. It will be quicker. It will be easy to deploy to the QA, to the CI, to the production. Maybe you have a QA, CI, CM, all these environments on the client environment as well. You need to deploy that. Well, if I could totally agree with you. If you have even a CSS that you have to deploy that on production, and you have these tools, you have automated deployment for production, you should stick to that and try to touch the production environment or perform a selective deployment. It's kind of an evolution on the deployment process. So you hit just deploy, and after that you're gonna do your smoke test, test the functionalities. But in general, it will minimize the risks of what you are saying. Someone break the process, log into the server, and copy a file over there, and then you have a file in the server that you don't have on TDS. This is very important regarding the XML transformations as well, because we have a lot of files, a lot of XMLs that will need to be changed on the project, and they will be deployed again on the server, and their importance is their configurations. And if someone changes such an important thing on the server and not going to have that on your source code, it's going to be very hard you to track that and try to understand why my environment is broken. So you must stick to the process. And if you already applied, if you're using the automated tools, you stick to that. Don't follow a process, and this would be great.
Right. Thank you, Neto, for your presentation. And I have two things for you, actually. So from an infrastructure perspective, that would be great to have all servers and environments set in a proper way. 2 CDs, 1 CM, load balancer, and stuff to make sure that wrong things doesn't happen most part of times. So my question for you, what's your opinion in make this as a standard, not a standard, a pattern for when you are making a deal or agreement with a client to provide those service? For example, if a client arrive at you and say that he only has 1 server with the Sitecore, would you suggest him to have separate node or just for test purposes or things like that? And if you are aware, if Sitecore license went over that.
Great question, Vinicius. Thank you. Well, yes, if we're signing a contract with this client, you're gonna do some work for them. You're gonna do the deployment for them. I think the first thing you should do is try to give an overview of the best infrastructure and tell them how risky would be this deployment. Yeah, the client must be aware of that. Otherwise, if something goes wrong, he's gonna blame you for that. So before starting the deployment, if you can show him and do an overview of how it should be done to avoid downtime. If it's a matter of, it's a question of money. So yes, we have a lot of standalone servers there, but maybe we have a standalone server, but the client's not aware of the risk that is involved during this deployment process. So if something goes wrong, he's gonna blame you and think that you are incapable of performing the deployment, but maybe it's actually not your fault, but it's the process itself, it's not the best that you could perform due to the infrastructure. So that's why it's very important, like, to have that document that you can agree with the client the responsibilities, the time, how long it's going to take to roll back, and you can also include the risk. This is something that I do in my deployments in the document. I put the risk, the classification risk, and I try to put why this is risky for the client to be aware of why it's that risky. It's because it's standalone server. Is it because it's he must perform it during business hours? So you should tell them, try to tell them what is involved in that. How risky this can be in his case. Because the client doesn't want to have their brain affected, but if you show and tell him that there is another race. Once I had a client that had license, they had license for that, but they are just not aware of that process to get a better environment. Maybe they have the money, they have the will, but they just don't know. You know, maybe the manager just arrived there. It was working, so let's continue to do that. But your job as a consultant is try to improve the client process, or at least tell them how to improve that and try to make things better for him.
I think this is a great point because actually this is more like a business question, right? The client does not have the money or the license, or not willing to afford for a scaled environment, for example, or working on Azure, or multiple content deliveries. If that's their situation, then we do need to have those plans and deployments, not just the success path, but really more important part really is the rollback plan, because at the end of the day, the client does not want to see their website up for a second, right? So in situations like this one, there's production service, a standalone server. If you need to recycle your Apple just by dropping a DLL on their pin, the site is going to take some time to respond. If there's anything wrong and you have not captured in your, UAT, you might need to think on a rollback. So we had situations, Jose, you and I have worked on cases exactly like that, right? Where we had very strict rollback plans because maybe a minute off, it's not acceptable. Also, but again, in that specific case, the client could not afford, 2 content deliveries and have to deal with it, right? But that's the good thing about Sitecore. Sitecore, it's scalable enough so you can have, attend just not clients like this, but clients working on Azure with multiple content deliveries, which helps a lot when establishing a deployment process, right? So yeah, that's really good.
Well, thank you, Jose, man. You were amazing, man. All right. Okay, so we'll have 5 minutes so everyone can get prepared here. and we'll get back in a second.
O Léo vai perder o teste de cabelo agora.
Tá bom, né, cara? Vou fora.
Esse carrinho.
Pô, você tá gente se pega, você não pode mais, cara. Pô, tá fechando ele, não, você vai aqui, velho.
Vou pegar mais.
E aí, sargento?
Nós tava ali roubando, cara. Roubando aqui no Twitter.
Não, mas vocês não, cara, essas perguntas isso.
Eu vou fazer, cara. Vou perguntar sobre e-commerce.
Is that true that your first presentation would be about commerce?
Sabe que liga pro banheiro? Aqui na garagem, cara. Letra dos carros, porra.
Viu o Honda Civic cinza.
Tá transmitindo isso daqui?
Na roda. Na maçaneta da porta.
Os cachorros mijam tudo no meu carro.
E aí, tá bom? Não mesmo, né?
Tem mais salgadinho aqui. Eu vou lá em cima pegar mais cerveja.
Atrás do cachorro, já botou uma aqui na roda. Fazendo churrasco. Não, mas legal. Pô, legal.
Só com massa na espalda aí.
Não, isso não.
Maravilha.
Enrolei
Uma coisa depois, cara, no final da tua apresentação, eu lembrei, pô, poderia ter te chamado deployment na Azure. Mas, cara, eu lembrei disso no final de lá, não vou nem levantar esse ponto aí, o cara nem preparou. Vou deixar pra ferrar o Léo aqui sobre e-commerce.
Tô ligado.
Ó, tô pedindo, Léo.
Pô, não faz isso não, hein?
Bota aqui, ó.
Daí, pô, hackathon, nego.
O Roberto subiu, ele tá ali, né, escondido.
Isso não é São Paulo, né? Tá ligado?
Não sabia, né? Ele tá. Esse aqui tá no Brasil, mas ele tá.
Ele veio pra São Paulo, vamos passar o Natal aí, pô.
Com a família.
Vamos fazer o seguinte, cara, quando passar essa virada de ano aí, vamos reunir eu e ele. Vem que eu deixar umas paradas meio prontas, tá ligado?
Tá? Cara, deixar o ambiente pronto, guide, tudo no esquema já, tá ligado? Melhor coisa.
Saiu competindo esse ano aí.
É, né?
Pra competir com a gente não dá.
O cara foi no time ganhador, né? Foi esperto no time ganhador ali, vai entrar no time ganhador.
Cara, tu morreu pra vender, tá?
Porra, foi convidado pro time aí, né, velho?
Não, o que eu pensei foi, a gente marca um jantar em todo mundo, churrasco, bota um lado de deixa todo mundo mal no outro dia, e aí só não.
Ninguém me convidou pro time do senhor, né?
Ninguém também convidou, cara.
Eu saí montando o time desesperadamente, porque o Flores começou a dar pra trás. Eu saí desesperadamente para andar de quem eu conhecia.
Não, mas assim, ó, não vamos fazer isso não. Vamos deixar isso pronto. Montar um hangout aí, fazer um live, uns dias, deixar aberto. Meio que marcar a hora que a galera vai, tipo, vamos cada, sei lá, uma hora pra fazer um touchpoint aí, vem, tá, não pode, cara. Você! E aí,
Seria mais fácil explorar a apresentação, mas tem que fazer inglês, não tem problema.
começa quando lá.
Cara, seria férias, cara. Eu queria férias, né?
Não conseguiu? Vai começar no dia?
Dia 3, ó.
Vai começar em 3, dia 3 é terça.
Cara, tu vai ter um bem, todo mundo tá sério, assim, tá ligado? Tá com gasto, tá ligado?
Vai,
Isso que vai
cara,
acontecer.
vai cair atirando lá, velho.
Mas tô ligado, vai ser isso mesmo. Chegar já, metralhadora na mão.
Mas o bicho é gente boa pra caralho, cara. Dom lá no 3 a gente boa pra caralho, cara. Por isso o bicho em Vegas, ó, o cara é ponta firme.
Cara, vou ganhar uns 3 meses eu falo pra ele, cara, uma semana só pra dar uma relax, cara.
Tu tá no lugar, porra.
Pra dar um relax, cara. Tipo, porque, pô, foi muito tenso aí, meu. E, pô, fora o negócio do night trampo, tô tendo que botar meu ambiente, numa máquina, entendeu? Tem um monte de PJ, que aceitar de novo, conta. Um monte de problema.
Foi fechado a empresa?
Qualquer
Você
coisa
ia
é
fechar a empresa?
Cara, eu paguei pro computador fechado.
velho, mas
Eu quero esquecer.
Eu fui mandar. Aí eu fui mandar, eu falei, não. Eu segurei. Eu vou segurar por uma semana. Aí eu,
bicho, ó, qualquer coisa, o cara segurar o pagamento, vou mandar o pagamento do pessoal, velho.
não, sim, né? Aí tem que ir
Só por isso que eu massa de
eu
SSD, ó. Por isso que eu massa de Bitcoin, né?
tive que fechar minha conta
Você
PJ.
viu na Bitcoin, é assim, bonzão.
Não, o cara já transfere direto, eu nem vejo Bitcoin. Só que a empresa trabalha com Bitcoin, ele recebe em dólar lá numa conta como se fosse
Pô, verdade, comprar de tudo é uma merda, né?
É uma bosta. E lá, tipo, eles me passam uma conta direta, tá ligado? Eu passo uma conta de banco de lá.
Aí eu fico fechando aqui, ó. Cara, aí no banco vai ter que abrir.
Mas aí como é que faz 10 dias contar porque essa porra tá variando pra caramba, né?
Já tá transmitindo isso aqui? Deu um pause lá?
Tá.
Aí eu escolho o que
Tá, aqui, ó. Mas tu não paga de claro.
Ali, aquela tela ali.
Ah, tá, não, mas já tá passando mesmo. Acho que ele não tinha dado um pause.
Não. Só tá transmitindo.
Opa!
Na hora que você chegar aí, tem que jogar lá, tá?
Tá, peraí, cara, que deu fica no meu HD porque plugou o do Neto aqui, peraí.
Mentira, só ele.
Vai ser pagamento dos caras da
Aí já o cara não dorme hoje.
Porque tá no drive da moda descalço aqui.
Você subiu o custo de 6 para 15, foda, né?
Mano, só fica essa porra aí não, pelo amor de Deus. Eu até quero ler aquela parada que tu mandou lá, não dei ainda.
Eu dei sorte pra você fechar a minha, cara. Quer dizer, eu não fechei, não. Dá uma olhada em fechar. Você tem computador diferente, não tem?
Rodrigo, cara, talvez tenha que dar um reset aqui.
Nem o que eu mandei, eu vou lá pra você, velho. Agora o seu computador também.
Talvez tenha que dar um reset aqui, velho.
Cara,
Não tá pegando os dados aí.
Não, dá uma olhada.
Tá tudo lá.
Dá uma olhada se ele tá rodando o servidor, parece que ele segue o Management Studio.
Assim, mas aí, você lá no Alex.
Se não resetar, ele volta na hora.
Pode só
Não dá, vai parar o streaming.
Mas é Bitcoin, pode só, tipo,
Pô, mas aí eu não consigo mostrar.
Vai ter que subir o Oscar, ele deve ter morrido. Olha,
Mas
você
eu
viu,
tô
né?
vendo.
Não, mas é, eu
Entrei.
tiro 500 reais, velho. Tipo, pega o Bitcoin, 6%. Nem pega o Bitcoin.
Ele tá mocando.
Aí já vai sua corretora, compra
Ele tá mocando. Abre o service aí. Abre o service aí.
Vai entrar com a foto e
Aperta o start e escreve o service.
na hora que tu tirou a tela, ele tirou o
Não esquece, ali.
Você
Aqui, ó.
pode cair 30.
Abre lá no Management Studio.
Vai pra 15%. Aquela cotação vai ser.
Aí você tem que ser Bitcoin,
Não dá 0,22.
Agora pode rodar o teu
Eles
bagulho.
fazem isso. Eu posso escolher se vem Bitcoin ou já não moeda. A vantagem do Bitcoin.
Cara, não tá indo.
Aí o pai começou ali 960. Aí 900 dólares, até 18 mil.
Bitcoin já vai estar mais caro. E vende, tá ligado?
Velho, mas é não. Não, assim,
Dólar 10, ele joga
chega
lá
essa
no
coisa lá do não questão de 100 dólares.
10, vale alguma coisa.
Mas aí o dia que for do
Eu
caralho,
tava vendo, teve um maluco lá que tá recebendo por aí.
Se for caralho, já não vai valer.
Bitcoin na bolsa do Brasil.
Não, faz. Só vai comprar na hora, Bitcoin no início do ano, tá?
E vai
Estaria milionário, velho. Comprar 1000 Bitcoins. Estaria hoje.
Tá indo não, Thiago. Nós vamos ver mais ou menos.
Não, cara, ele tá carregando lá.
Calma, eu acabei de resetar esse OBS aí.
Cara, eu falei isso. Pode uma simpática, que é PJ, declara tudo certinho, tá ligado? E aí eles estavam falando esse negócio esses dias, que vai aumentar tudo, tá ligado? Tudo que programadores, os caras estão caçando outros meios, mudar o cenário para outro, para tentar não aumentar.
Isso vai no meu samba, que o cara não do esquema lá, velho.
Vai, velho. É para não tá no site, não, velho. É muito site nacionais, tá ligado?
Cara, o brother deu um negócio pra mim.
Subiram o artigo que era o
negócio que aumentar tudo.
E aí vai
Nossa,
todos
6 a 15.
Então, já que o Diego roubou meu lugar.
Ah, o né?
Cara, eu li uma vez, achei que ia bater 6, mas daí veio um problema de sangue por tudo lá. Sério?
Acho que tá na hora de voltar, né, cara?
Não, e aí, tá rodando?
Tá rodinho.
Tá rodando? Peraí. Vamos lá então.
Qual que é meu microfone aqui?
Isso é YouTube. Alright, guys. So let's continue on this now. Leonardo is going to talk about media library management and his module he built. It's all yours, Leonardo. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. So good night, everybody. Is that working? Thanks for coming tonight. So we're going to talk a little bit about the media library. Calling media library management because I'm going to bring some interesting best practices, some interesting tools that we can use in order to keep the media library under control, right? Where's the next slide? Okay, I'm going to reset the presentation here. All right, sorry about that. So let's restart now. I don't know what's happening. Unstable.
Cara, PowerPoint, cara.
Mas aqui tem
Aí, pronto. Começa.
Mas não tá rodando.
Ok, então o que tu vai fazer é arrastar daqui para lá e mostrar lá mesmo.
Tá rodando daqui, ó. Copia pro teu C.
Assim, ó. Assim mesmo. Assim mesmo.
Não. Copia pro C. Tá no...
Okay, guys, sorry, just one technical problem here. I'm going to copy the presentation to another drive.
Desktop.
I'm going to leave it here. I'll solve it out later on. And let's give it a try again. All right, sorry about that. So, all right, so just following with the topic, quick introduction here. So my name is Leonardo. I started working with Sitecore back in 2015. That was beginning of 2015 on a Canadian company called Nonlinear Creations. I've been working with Sitecore ever since. This year, Nonlinear Creations was acquired, right, by Backtick. It became Backtick. That was, I believe, in July of this year. I've been investing a lot on Sitecore, learning, studying. I am currently active of the Sitecore community. I'm participating to the MVP nomination also. Also, I'm very happy to say that this year I managed to get my certification, my first Sitecore certification, so that's awesome. Just quickly checking here our agenda for tonight. So I'm going to have a quick introduction, put us to understand about what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to bring some scenarios, some case studies, basically, about media libraries that are ruining website, or maybe not ruining, but bringing complications, right, making content editors' life more difficult. And also, for sure, they're impacting on the performance of the website. We're going to talk a bit about some best practices. What brought me to develop a module, it's the topic number 4, that's called Media Essentials. This module is made to help, well, it's one extra tool, right? So it's supposed to help us to manage the media library. We're going to see what I'm talking about soon. Also, not just talking about my own tool, but I'm going to bring also some other modules that are available on the Sitecore market. And then some conclusions. All right, so the media library. This is something that usually we kind of, let's say that we put it aside, right? Because usually the developers concentrate a lot of power on the content node, on the template, layouts, but the media library is still in there. Probably it's something more, well, obviously it's something more for the content editors, but it needs to be structured well. During the planning, during the development of the website, it is very important to consider if you're going to keep the media stored on the database or if you're going to put it on the file system. Large file systems will impact on performance. I'm talking about gigas, right? If you're running in terms of gigas, like whatever, 5, 10, 15 gigabytes, just for media, for videos maybe. So tonight we're going to be talking a little bit about this, about how to apply some best practices to keep the media library more under control, right? These are suggestions, not rules. And although how, or maybe present a few other tools for us that we can use this on our daily basis or any other project we face in order to keep this under control. All right, so some scenarios. I created here a scenario like a very critical one. This is a website that has, well, let's say that has no planning. The media library, sorry. The media library has no planning, it has no user-friendly structure. You see, where's the mouse here? You see, for example, here, you see a very common example of for two items with the same names. Critical items called news, you could have a lot of sub-items here. Media folder items, duplicated, right? And also a test item someone created in production. Unless this is not a real test for the company, we should never create test content under production. So this is not good at all. Look at this, I just found another folder under this structure that's called sample images. A lot of items with the same name again, and no media at all. In any of these, you can go ahead and select any of these, and there is basically no media. This specific situation here, we are talking about 19 gigabytes. The site has been online for years, 4, maybe 5 years. And now I'm trying to help the client to restructure this. Last week, I received, well, the client contacted me and he mentioned about this. We are trying to make a plan to restore this media library, to remove what is not being used, and to reorganize that. Okay, so what happens is, with so many images, so many items like this, the content editors, they get lost. They absolutely get lost. They today they're working on a folder. In 1 month or something, they just create another folder. They should be using the same, and they just can't remember, they can't keep the organization here. I was running a few tools in there, and I noticed that from these 19 gigas, 12,000 images are not being used at all. They're just there because the content editors, they insert, they upload new images. Suddenly they just they remove the page. The page doesn't belong to the website anymore, but the image still remains in there, the media library, and it keeps occupying a lot of space on the database or on the file system. Scenario 2 here, this is that's a fine scenario, I would say. This one is working more as expected. I put here that this is something that it needs some attention, but this one is actually working fine with some minor mistakes. It's a multi-site scenario. See that there is a structure here on the files. You see there is the name of each website for as the main root here to keep organized by website, which is a very good practice. We're going to talk about this soon. Minor things that I found on this one, for example, video that was placed on a folder called images. So very silly, right? Very silly, very very silly, very simple. But we need to train, we need to talk to the content editors to avoid this kind of stuff. So in general, this scenario is good. It's way much better than the other one, but it needs some attention, right? We still can make this a little bit better. This specific scenario here has 12 gigas, which is also a lot. The other one had 19 gigabytes, and I think the number was over 30,000 images. This one has 12 gigas, and from all of these, only 447 are not being used. So this is quite good, right? It's still it's a large number, but if we compare with 12 gigabytes, it's still quite fine. It's quite all right, and it can be fixed. It can be fixed actually quickly, using tools, of course. Okay, the content editors, they still get lost, but not that much. And as I mentioned here, they keep creating folders, right? They keep trying to keep organized. Try to organize it, try to make it better, but if they don't plan from the beginning, if we don't have a good structure here, they get lost. Okay, so one of the best practices, again, this is not exactly a rule, okay? It's just something. It's a common suggestion. It's something that is commonly applied on the projects, and it works very well. Okay, so the Sitecore comes by default out of the box. Sitecore is storing all the media on the database. One very interesting advantage of this is that the Sitecore, as a CMS, the Sitecore has the capability to publish from the master to the delivery server, to the web DB. This is quite good. It makes things a lot easier for us. However, if you're planning from the beginning, if your client already told you that the site is going to grow a lot, the site is going to get big, they plan, maybe now it's just one site, but for the future they plan to increase, create more sites here. So you really should start considering to store the media on file system. It's not all beautiful. The file system will bring a few more complications. Maybe it might make the developer's life a bit more complicated, but in terms of performance and final result for the client as a whole, it could be better. You will have to decide it, okay? You need to judge. This, as I mentioned, it's not a rule. It's not something that you just go and do it. You need to analyze. You need to get everything you have in your hands and make a decision if you're going to upload this as file or not. I found this very interesting file here. If someone wants to get the link, I think maybe Rodrigo, maybe later we can put this also on the description of the video, right? This is a bit of an old file. Well, it's an old file, 2007, but it has some really interesting discussion here about media library. It talks about advantages, disadvantages. I copy a little bit. This slide this is not mine. I'm not writing this slide here. I copy from this this document just to give you an idea. So, for example, advantages of storing everything on the database. The content can be published, right? This is really nice. We can also use blocking, security, versioning in the workflow, which is really cool. The images can be manipulated in terms of just shrinking, stretching, right? We can control, we can do this. Oops, sorry. And also, changes to the media library are not gonna, they don't need to be synchronized, right? Especially when you're talking about a standalone version. For example, some advantages, I don't think I'm gonna go through all of them, so it might get a little bit heavy, but just a few advantages. For example, very large media, they will impact your website in terms of performance. For example, last week I saw in one of the clients, I noticed that some images were put in there with more than 5,000 pixel resolution. It was like 5,000 by 4,000 something, with something incredibly big. They put this image on a slider, and then later on they complained that the slider was losing performance. They didn't know what was happening, but the image was incredibly big. Okay, so put things like this on the database. It will impact, if you have too many big images, it will impact, I guess, anywhere, both file system, both databases. The URLs also, they might change it, right? If you put them on the database, we won't have the original file extensions, right? We're going to have our .ashx extension. And also some quick advantages and disadvantages if you decide to go to the file system. Some advantages would be the media can be manipulated. For instance, copying the media folder to another system. You can have any operating system you're using if you want to make searches or whatever, any examinations, compress your images, whatever the work you're trying to do, image comparison, image, maybe you can run external tools to find duplicates. That would be nice. So this is one big advantage of using file system. The advantage is if you're using multi-server, you might need to keep this, well, not you might, you have to keep this in sync. Sitecore has this module here that's called the Sitecore staging module. You will have to use this to help you to keep this content in sync. Another best practice, keep it user-friendly. What that means is you have to find an interesting way to keep all the structure of your website as your website keep growing, as the content authors, the content editors keep using the website. You need to think of something that is easy to maintain, easy to understand what's happening there. So for example, if we are talking about multi-sites, one instance, one standalone instance with many sites running there, maybe this suggestion would be something very, very interesting inside the media library. As the scenario 2 that I showed before, it would be interesting to create folders. Where's the mouse here? Sorry. Like this, like site 1, site 2, site 3, and maybe separate images from each other. This way also you need to remember that you might need to work with content auditors, create new roles for each, and security. You have to make sure that the content auditors will be able to access the images that belong to a website, but maybe they will be forbidden to access images on other websites. Some other suggestions, I've been thinking about this, some of these I found on the internet, some of others I was creating myself. It seems to work really nice. Again, this is not a rule, it's a suggestion, right? You can apply this if you believe it's gonna work well for you. So one is to use categories, subcategories. I think this is a really good one if the content editors, if they are able to separate what they're putting there on the website. So for example, we'll talk about, for example, category documents and forms, images and videos, right? Like 3 very common categories. It could work very well. However, if the site is getting too big, or if you're planning again to have the site keep growing and get things really big, maybe you have to keep increasing more subcategories here. For example, I've seen this before, separating the media library by a website, by category, and at a certain level, also using from letters, creating a folder structure with the initial letters. Could work very well, because usually they just upload the image, right? They don't care about renaming the image. They just care about SEO fields. We'll talk about this later, but usually they don't rename the images, they just upload the way it is. So just grab the name, put on the letter, that's it. It could work well. This latest one probably is the best suggestion, I believe. If they are able to do it, keep it as the website navigation is. So if you're uploading an image and you expect this to be on your home page, then create your site here, then create the home item. It's a really good way to organize and keep things under control. Okay, okay, so another really interesting thing, I already gave an example about this, but try to optimize the images. If you can, talk to the content editors, tell them to avoid this. If you are, as a developer, if you're maintaining the website, if you regularly access the website, if you see things like that, maybe you're able to suggest them not to do it, not to keep uploading really, really big images in there, because it will affect the performance of the website. They will complain about this later. There are a few interesting tools related to this topic. We'll get there soon. Okay, so focus on this. I spent some time thinking about how can we make this better? How can we, for example, remove unused content from the media library? For example, imagine remember those scenarios again from the beginning. Imagine a scenario with 19 gigabytes. There is absolutely no way you can just go there with your human eyes and start start clicking one by one, trying to identify if there is a link somewhere or not. So you need to code, you need to have some tool to help you with this. So in the expectation of having things make things a little bit easier, I created this module. It's called the Media Essentials. The Media Essentials has this name because there are main functionalities in there. And I wanted to centralize everything in just one place. It still has only 3 main functionalities, but it will grow. We are also going to talk a little bit about this. I have high expectations to make this module grow a lot more. Okay, so what this module is doing for now is, well, as I mentioned, the main goal is to centralize it, right? All the features related to media items, right? This module is very simple installation, very basic. It's a Sitecore package. You just download it, put it on the Sitecore, install it. You see just some basic information in there. Nothing to worry about. Once you install it, you're going to see this little icon here on your dashboard. Where is the mouse? On the dashboard, it's the Media Essentials. It's under the content editing. You can also access the module directly to this. Directly to this URL. But you don't have to. You can just click here. You need to be an admin. Okay, I would never make this kind of tool available to your content editor or to the public. So it has some security level in there. You have to be an admin to access this. This site runs out of the Sitecore shell. I'm not using Speak. I'm not using anything. Just Bootstrap 4. So this is the face. That's it. That's the face of the tool. As I mentioned, it has 3 main functions here. So one is to export the media, basic description of the function here, what it does, unused media, which is really interesting, and also autofill alt tag fields. Okay, so just one quick, very quick demonstration here. This is, for example, this is the export media. So from the left side here, you have very basic information you need to set. So you select the database. This is dynamic, right? You can have as many databases here. It will be listed. You select exactly which folder you want on the media library. It's a drop-down. You can select whatever you want. Tell the system if you want to include subsystems and if you're including subfolders. Once you click on export, that's it. You're going to have a full report here on the right side. You have the total of images that were exported. This happened all very fast. You have the path on the server where the media was stored, and also what's the ID and name of the item. You will also have an option to download everything on the zip file. All right, unused media, probably the most useful function so far. Back again to the example of the 19 gigas I'm going to use this tool in there. Probably I would make a report about this later, but I'm going to make use of this tool. And I'm going to remove a lot from those gigas that I identified. Probably everything is going to be gone. So again, it's very repetitive. It's simple enough to have everything you need. You just select database, select the folders, and run. Here in this scenario, in this situation, you're gonna have 2 options. You can send all the unused media to the recycle bin, or you can delete them. Quickly, just click. Just click, and that's it. This tool also is quite interesting. Remember, every time we insert, we upload an image to Sitecore, we do have the alt field marked as a warning, as an error, right? We have to fill in the alt tag because of SEO purposes, right? We need this, markup 5 needs this. So what this also is very interesting. What it does is, if you click on autofill, it's going to get all the alt tag fields of the images. It's going to get the name of all the images and fill in the alt tags. Okay, so you can see here, for example, this output here. The name of this image is channel. Now the alt field also is channel, and it keeps doing the same. It's very useful because you're going to fill in absolutely 100% of the media. So in terms of SEO aspect, this is something really good. I'm going to very quickly demonstrate this here. Oh, right, this tool is going to work on Sitecore, starting from Sitecore 8, right? 8 forward. It won't work on Sitecore 7 or lower than 8. Okay, so if you click on the icon, you see that it opens on a new tab. Okay, so here are a few functionalities. Let's go, for example, the unused media. Just select that. Sorry, that was too fast. Just select the database you want. Select the folder you wanna analyze it, and that's it. Once you click it, very quickly it's going to generate the full report for you, and you're going to have these options to move it to recycle bin or delete it. I'm going to move everything to recycle bin, and that's it. All the 37 were moved to the recycle bin. If you come here and check. And they are all there. Okay, so you can export, of course, you can make your backups, export the media, generate zip files, go ahead, delete everything, remove it, or go ahead also and hit the autofill for the alt tag fields. So this is quite nice. This tool, I have high expectations to make it grow. And we're going to talk about more possible functionality soon. Let me just get back here to the demo. Okay, so this is on Marketplace, right? This is the link. I'm going to put this link on the description of the video later on. As I mentioned, it is required to have at least the Sitecore Experience 8. Okay, it won't work on lower versions. I made this open source. Okay, it is on GitHub. I'll put the links in there again. If you wanna, if you wanna collaborate, if you wanna get the code and do your own implementation, increase this work, feel free to do it. Feel free to collaborate. The project is very simple. I just created a separated folder here above the main website, right? The project just have one helper class that contains all the main functionalities and main pages here. That's it. I developed this on web form. So for next, I will probably migrate this to MVC. If you're interested in using, feel free to do it. Feel free to collaborate, give ideas. You can contact me anywhere through my website, through my blog, right? Probably, I've been thinking about a few improvements. Probably, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to migrate this from web form to MVC. I think I'm going to increase this very useful functionality here that is going to display the size of which media that was found and also the total. So if the tool identifies like, whoa, 10,000 images are not being used, also it's going to calculate for you the size of each and the total of all these that could be free. I'm going to create this specific folder, this option to move all the unused media to a specific folder rather than just delete it and just move it to the recycle bin. So for whatever your purpose is, if you don't want to discard all your content, if you're worried about whatever you're trying to do, you have this option. In case you notice, there is still no loading icon displayed in there. So if I'm running this tool in something like 19 gigas, like the scenario 1, it's going to give you the impression that it's frozen. Because it's working, it's going to take a while. So I'm going to go ahead and put this loading icon in there. More functionality is coming. I'm going to list all the pages they're making use of the image. This could be very interesting. I'm going to also give an option to generate reports for all the images that were uploaded after a specific date and also before a specific date. And I'm going to list also all the media with warning fields. I believe with this, the way it is already helped me out to keep the media library under control. And I think with this, it's going to make things even more interesting. All right, so not talking only about my own modules, but I've seen a few other modules also. I've used some of these. They seem to be quite interesting. For example, the media library, the policeman, that's going to restrict what files can be placed in a specific folder, considering also the size of each file. So if the content auditor doesn't know what he's doing, if he's allowed to be, I don't know, maybe uploading just images in there, if he tries to upload a video, for example, it's going to be restricted. So it is a tool that can definitely help you out to keep things under control, because you're not logged in there every day. You don't know what's happening. Media conversion tool that allows you to convert media from the hard disk to the database, which is also quite interesting. Media optimizer. Automatically, it's an image optimizer. There is still, so far, it works only with PNG and JPEG. But it does make a compression, which is quite good. It makes a compression right there, right on spot, inside the Sitecore. It's not going to give you any extra work. This one also is very interesting. I got a few ideas from this one, from the beginning of the creation of my module. This one is on reference media. It's going to identify unused media items, just like mine. However, there are more main functionalities here that are also very interesting. This is the main interface. There is one interesting feature here that if you hover the mouse over the image, you're going to preview the image. You can see quickly what image is there. And if you really make sure, okay, this image, it doesn't matter, you can select the checkbox here. And later on, you click on the delete button. So this tool is also quite interesting. I really suggest everybody to use it. Also, if you go to the media library, if you go to the Sitecore marketplace and type in their media library, you see there's about 103 results. Maybe not everything related to media library, because this research understands two separate words, right? Just media and then just library. But there are a lot of modules in there, a lot of tools. So just to conclude, the media library is something that is in there. It is making part of the website. It is important for the developer to guide the content editor on how to use it. If they make a mess, after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, it might be really difficult to recover, in a way that it could become a really frustration for their team to keep using that thing. So analyze it from the beginning if you can, if you're going to have the opportunity to be part of the project from start. Analyze it from the beginning if you're going to keep this on file system or not. See what the advantages could be more interesting for this client. Try to compress. There are a lot of tools. There are Sitecore modules for this. There is also external tools that you can make use of it to keep all with the same relative size. Try not to upload too large documents. I believe these are the sizes I collected. Documents over, I believe, 40 megabytes, this is the limit. And also media files over 15 megabytes, this is also the limit. Again, as a best practice, try not to insert much more than 25 items under each item. All right, so these are my suggestions. This is that was the topic for tonight. Thank you for watching. Any comments? Any questions?
Yeah, we do have some questions.
All right.
I have just, I guess. All right, I have 2 questions for you. I've seen some guys, I know this is not very something common to see, but I've seen some people dealing with media in a separate database. Instead of having everything in the master database, they still work with a database, but with a second database. Instead of being the master, you have like a media database. Have you seen that? Have you considered that?
I have not seen that.
Oh,
How would that work?
That would be like, currently you just work in the master database. All your media would be in a separate database. You have to switch databases to have them on content addition, but you still can link them. Like
you don't need to duplicate the environment, and you don't need to duplicate the media items for the web and master database. You can use a separate database.
Oh, that's interesting. I believe they also need to make sure that they're gonna make use of the metadata, because the media items on the Sitecore, they need to sort of information, right? One is the media itself, the image itself. The other one is the metadata.
Yeah, but the idea here would be, having a duplication of the master database that will be empty, and you use it just to store media. So instead of having your master database getting huge, you have a smaller master database.
That's cool. Interesting.
I think there is one more thing. Media items are content, of course, but when you are developing something, you sometimes need to upload media items as well for your thing. Like, for instance, if you are developing a component, you can upload a thumbnail for the component. If you are adding some demo or default content to your standard values, for instance, you might need some media items. So how you suggest with separate items, that media item that has been created during development from media, that if you delete, you probably will have problems.
Sure.
From media items that something that it is working. From media items that
right. Good question. Well, I believe I will create a folder also, right there on the media library. But you need to make sure you're going to make good use of security roles, right? So for your users, for content editors, forbid them to see this folder. Don't allow other users to access unless they have an admin role or a developer role. That would be one solution. Right. Thank you. Diego.
Okay, Diego here. Do you have a couple of comments from your presentation and on things that I have seen and I think you can help with your topic here? The first one is, you mentioned something really interesting, when you're uploading, when content authors are uploading media to the media library,
right,
about limiting the size and all of that, right? What I've seen is that you can, when you're building a website, really, you need to help out your content authors. At the end of the day,
right,
you need to help out them achieving what they want. So I wouldn't expect that most content authors would kind of care about the size of the image that they're uploading. They just want the image on their websites and that's it, right? So I think when we're building our websites, we need to help them out achieving the best out of that. So one of the things that I've seen, for example, is implement a custom pipeline that when you're uploading an image to the media library, you call a third-party service that does that for you. Like there's a ton of service out there that does that. We have a blog post at Jocks to the Core at Brain Jocks that none of the developers did that, and it kind of walks you through exactly which steps you need to do to actually get there. But at the end of the day, that's it, right? So when you're uploading, you compress and you upload compress already. So you don't let the content authors worry about that. You do the work for them. That's really good. Another thing that I noticed, and that is really common out there that you can do is, you mentioned something really interesting in the beginning of the presentation around, you know, the way you organize your media library to get, you know, kind of help organize. So for example, you mentioned something around multi-site or based on the item level or your content area, right? So one of the things that can help you actually get there is scaffold your website in a way that you don't have really to worry about much of that, because your scaffolding will take care of much of that for you. So for example, you scaffold a multi-site implementation, you know where site A media are gonna be, and you can scaffold, you know, I don't know, the homepage media, or it's up to you, right? You scaffold the way you want, but at the end of the day, you're kind of building your website and already helping them get there. Right. So most of these painful things that you mentioned here, and I've seen myself, can be avoided if you provide a good scaffolding process when you're beginning your project, for example, right? So
we can. If you're on the beginning, that would be great. We'll have the chance to create the, you know, the initial structure, and then probably to train the Sitecore editors, the content editors. Sorry. So that would be good.
Exactly. So one of the things that I did notice, and I wanted to ask you specifically, just one last comment from my question is, you mentioned about the maintenance of this media library, and then one of the things that I missed in your presentation, and I think it's worth mentioning here, is around PowerShell extensions.
All right.
PowerShell extensions help you get a lot of this to out. You can get out of most of it, you know, like for example, getting which data is not being used. This is out of the box with the PowerShell module, so that's actually my first question. I'm not sure if you have used that or not in your module. I was kind of curious, but I just decided to actually mention that. That there's a lot that you actually can get with PowerShell. PowerShell gives a lot of power over Sitecore. This is just one of the features that I know it's always out of the box. And the next question that I have for you, I'll ask both and answer both, is you mentioned something around an autofill, like you remember autofill,
yes.
the alt tag
yes.
on the image, on the images. How does that work? Like, is it you
okay.
kind of can profile from the image and kind of figure out what the alt text is going to be based on the image, or is this more like to avoid it being like empty and bypass validation? How does that work?
You answered this secondly. It's just to avoid it being empty. So this one, there is a future implementation for me here. I didn't mention about that because I think it would be a little bit complex. I want to leave it for latest. But the one I did here is going to basically identify which media has this alt field empty. I'm going to show you again. Sorry, I'm just going to quickly go back here to the.
Because I'm going to suggest them, like, if this is an auto thing that just to bypass you, what I would suggest, maybe you reach out to Mark Stiles. Mark Stiles is working on an open source project for IA.
Okay.
Right? And he kind of showed some stuff at the symposium where he was kind of implementing using machine learning, like a chat and everything, you know, like we get an image and he would tell you, oh, this is a cat image.
Oh, yes, that's what I was going to comment. Yes.
Actually, a suggestion.
I've seen it.
Maybe you can integrate with the cognitive services from Microsoft, and maybe you can like an autofill like intelligently as opposed to just blindly filling in just to bypass validation.
Exactly. I think there is a module already on Sitecore. I can make a research about this. I think Editor is confirming that. There is a module that does that. The module is going to get the empty fields, the alt empty fields, and it's going to identify what kind of image is that, and it's going to put a name on it. So mine here is just to, it's very simple. It might solve the problem, it might not, but it's still better than nothing, right? It's better than just leave it empty and leave it for the content auditor to find where is each. So it is helping, but yeah, very good comment. Thank you. That's something that I definitely consider about this. That's something that could be implemented here. If anybody has, where is the mouse again? If anybody has some you know, some ideas, some recommendations, please talk to me, reach out, go to my blog, get my email in there. That's my blog, leonardocunha.net. You may contact me, give me some ideas. I'll be very happy to keep incrementing this model, increasing. And again, it's for everybody. It's a useful tool. No matter companies, no matter nothing, it's very useful for everybody. Questions, comments?
Hello,
Neto.
Yes, I just want to add something that I thought the presentation was pretty cool and pretty helpful as well. Excellent. I just want to add something about the size of the image. It's an idea. Well, there is the Dianoga. It's a compressing tool for cancer. It's an excellent tool that compresses image dynamically. Maybe this would be an idea as well. Maybe integrating with that. I don't know. Maybe we can work with this tool together and create something cool. Well, this was just to complement the presentation, but it is something helpful to reduce the space if you have a lot of images. This tool.
Say that again.
Dianoga from cancer.
Dianoga.
Yes, Dianoga. It's compress the image dynamically. When the user hit the website, it's gonna generate a compressed image. You can set the percentage of the compression, and it's going to store that image compressed on Sitecore. And then next time you're gonna hit the image, it's gonna hit that image. That compressed image, so it can help your website to be faster. It's a useful tool for everyone. I would recommend that as well.
Interesting, thank you. Yeah, compression, that's a good topic. Yeah. Something else to put in here. Vinicius.
So yeah, so great presentation.
Thank you.
Leo. I think it's a great idea. At the same way that Neto presented his points in terms of infrastructure and avoiding risk and deployments and automation and things like that. I believe that some companies doesn't afford many budget to start a project. And sometimes they forget the easy peasy to start that. And media library probably is one of those things. And I believe your module, it's probably designed for companies that for some reason got the wrong partner from Sitecore that delivered probably not a good job, and they hired someone else to try to fix that. In terms of releasing some space on unused media and things like that. So I believe your module can walk side by side, as we mentioned about in Neto's presentation. Probably do some budget stuff that company cannot afford a good implementation or forgot that project and avoid risks and things like that. So what do you think that your module could, in addition to Diego's comments as well, change in some sort of aspects to help those companies that made some mistakes at the beginning of projects and want to make it happen for media library specifically?
I think the module was more designed to for the maintenance purpose rather than from the beginning of the project. You see, the functionalities are more like compressing, finding unused media, export your media library. I believe it could be added to the beginning of the project. We could have an agreement with the client that we're going to be from time to time, we're going to execute a maintenance in there, maybe monthly, for example. So we can allow the content editors, to do their job for a month, and we go there in a few minutes. We can run this tool, just, remove the unused ones, make a backup. Could be helpful. It could be interesting. I'm not sure it would take really too much time. At least considering the functionalities we have now, these 3 main functionalities, right? I don't think it's something that it would take too long. Really, it's just a few clicks. You're safe. You have a backup. A few more clicks. You got a few removed.
Okay.
That's it. But yeah, it would be definitely interesting to make the clients aware that we do have this module in there. We highly suggest to make use of it.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Does anybody have any question, anything? All right, so thank you. Thank you.
All right. So if anybody has any questions, let us know in the next 30 seconds. Can we check YouTube?
All right, just
Yeah,
one
out
comment
of,
here. I think
Wi-Fi
Rodrigo, is he working? All right, just one more quick comment here. I think Rodrigo in a few minutes is gonna finish that, but it's been a great year, right? It's been a really interesting year. Our topics are definitely growing and becoming stronger. I believe everybody here making part of the SUG-BR has really, really great potential in terms of Sitecore, in terms of programming expertise. So this one is the latest, but the latest of the year only. Next year, we're going to start again. Feel free to participate. We're going to keep streaming that. We're going to keep, we'll keep trying to organize this at least once a month, I believe. We're going to be more focused on Sitecore 9, probably bring more interesting topics. So thank you for everybody. Rodrigo?
That's it. Thank you, Leo. Great presentation. Thank you, José Neto. Great presentation as well. I guess that we're reaching the end of our last Sitecore in Brazil.
Happy New Year.
I hope everyone has great holidays. Enjoy. Don't eat too much. Don't eat too much. And we see each other next year. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Pô, eu espero que vocês tenham deixado uma prainha aí.
Deixa eu dizer a igreja.
Pô, cara, eu faço produto que sai com a Commerce, mas daí não.
Deixa eu ver aqui.
Eu ia te falar, ó, velho, tem um problema de permissão aí.
Só tem um problema, ele não instala direito.
É uma merda. Foi escolher a pior versão para instalar, não para a versão, né?
Tu escolheu a pior versão, cara.
Não, 8.2, a pior versão do Commerce do mundo, cara.
Não, tem uma antes que é pior.
Antes, quando era da Microsoft.
Eu entrei na não linha, aí deu uns 6 meses aí. Já tá mais familiarizado aí que isso aí corre.